Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting comics loving edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be talking with someone who is an accomplished writer in their own right and also editing, working in the world of sharing stories of others, which I always love, and that is author Robert Jeschonek. Robert, thank you for jumping in and joining.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. I love the background. Remind me, Pat Broderick, is that right?
It is indeed Pat
I thought
Broderick.
so. I
Oh
thought
my God.
so.
I'm so excited that we have a cover image from Pat Broderick. It's just so cool. As somebody who's loved his work all my life, or much of my life anyway. Very excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and speaking of work that I've loved all my life, I mean, we've got Badger here, we've got Concrete, we've got Cerberus, so Flaming Carrot right there. Just
Yeah.
an assembly of characters from the way back, which does not honestly feel that way back to me, quite
I know,
honestly.
right? I
Yeah,
know, me
yeah.
too. Oh my God, it just seems like yesterday. Oh, and it was such an exciting time too. I mean, when those indie comics first really started coming out in force. I mean, we of course had Cerebus, and there were some other
Hmm.
things, Star Reach, and there were other things that had come out. But like this was kind of like I don't know, kind of a mini Big Bang of that stuff. And wasn't it cool?
So very cool. I still go back to Paul Chadwick stuff and just enjoy and soak up the goodness of it. You're a person who has followed comics for some time, it sounds like. How did you get involved in the world of storytelling and comics specifically?
Just ever since I was a little kid, I loved it. My parents got me comic books and trying to encourage me to read, I'm sure. And I took to them. I loved them from day one. I also loved newspaper comic strips as well, which were similar, words and pictures. And
Hmm.
it just stuck. I got started with I think actually I started with Marvel stuff, like Fantastic Four back in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they had reprints of Kirby stuff from the 60s in certain titles. And oh man, I just love that stuff. And then got into DC and then of course the 80s rolled around and then this stuff, like you said, Concrete and Badger and Grimjack and all those great characters and
Hmm.
but leading into that in the 70s, really, artists like Mike Grell really piqued my interest. I
Hmm.
loved Grell on the Legion and on Green Arrow, Green Lantern, and oh, that just got me so thrilled. And then to see him doing John Sable and Star Slayer,
Yeah.
just those were good times, man.
Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned, you've written books on your own, and you have books of your vision out there. But you also have this creative vision called Legends of Indie Comics. So please tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thanks for asking. It's a
Hmm.
project. It's been a long time dream project of mine. As you can tell, I have like a real love of comics and a particular era of a particular type of comic as well, indie comics in the 80s. And I had always thought, wouldn't it be great to get the old band back together again,
Hmm. Hmm.
and see where their characters are now. I mean, of course, many of these creators are still active in the creative community in different ways, and some of them are still making great comics. They're really active people out there, but I always wanted to see them doing my favorite characters from their past, which
Hmm.
maybe they're not necessarily doing right now. So I always had this dream of bringing them together. And, as you know, producing a comic book can be an expensive proposition. And producing one with creators of this caliber could be really expensive. You can't just pay them a very low word rate and expect them to be all in on your project.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I thought, I wonder if we could do a prose fiction thing. And so this has been kind of percolating for maybe as long as like 10 years. I was thinking about this. And then
Yeah.
finally this year, I just got the bug and I'm like, let's go. Let's see if we can make this happen. And yeah, that was the origins. I just wanted to bring them all back together, as many of them as I could. And uh
Awesome.
and I reached out to people, and believe me, I reached out to like everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody from the band? Would you like to introduce the band, some of the people that are involved in the project?
Yeah, we've got Mike Barron, of course, the co-creator of Nexus and the creator of Badger, and so many other things. He's one of those guys who's still very active in the comics world,
Hmm.
and still doing that sort of thing. And he wrote tons for DC. Remember, he had a very long run on, I think it was on Flash and some other comics. Anyway, he's been around. He's done a lot of work.
Hmm.
And so Mike Barron's on there, and John Ostrander. He's bringing back Grimjack in a story, a prose fiction story for this project. And John did, of course, Grimjack and lots and lots and lots of other stuff. He worked a lot for DC and also some for
Hmm.
Marvel. So he's been around a long time. Mike Grell, we got Mike.
Nice.
He's given us a John Sable story to use, a John Sable prose story, and Bob Burden with Flaming Carrot.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
was one of the highlights of my life talking to Bob Burden on the phone. It was
Yeah.
exciting to me. I don't go to a lot of comic conventions, so it was kind of a big deal. I always loved that surreal, bizarro world of the carrot. And let's see, who else is a big name? Oh, well, of course, Paul Chadwick, you mentioned. Paul
Yeah.
Chadwick. I honestly wasn't sure I could get him because I thought he was always the cream of the crop. He's a really accomplished writer and artist, and I hadn't heard him doing anything with concrete forever. And I thought, I don't know if he's going to want to go back down that road. But when I reached out to him, he was on board.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Awesome.
that's the way. And then we brought in a couple of newer folks as well. We brought in a guy named Javier Hernandez,
Hmm.
who created El Muerto, his particular version of a character with that name. And so we got him in the game, and Justin Jordan, who created Luther Strode and Spread and all these other. Oh my God, he's done tons and tons of series and a lot of work for Image. So we brought them in to help to connect the past to the present and the future and all that sort of thing. So
Love it.
yeah, it's so exciting to be involved with this and to work with this group of people. Oh, Michael T. Gilbert, of course. He was
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
the first one to say yes. He was the first person I approached, the creator of Mr. Monster, well, the modern day version of Mr. Monster.
Yeah.
And he was on board. He was in Johnstown, which is my hometown, Johnstown, PA, which is also the hometown of Steve Ditko. He came to Johnstown for a Steve Ditko related event, and I met him and talked to him there, and I sort of approached him about the project, and he was into it. So that's really where it kicked off. That's where I got the momentum.
Nice, nice. What a great lineup and what a great team. And I remember loving characters growing up, and then occasionally you get like a prose collection. And so I get to kind of hear the voice of the author that way, and I get to explore different stories. What was it like to see some of these characters evidenced in prose? Because really they're more comics form characters, but I imagine that added a lot for you as a reader and as a fan too.
Yeah, as you've suggested, it's a very different discipline, right? Than
Hmm.
writing comics. You don't have the visual aspect to lean on to say, you have to describe the character, describe the action, and instead of portraying it visually. So it is a different kind of thing to read. But on the other hand, you get a lot more background on the
Hmm.
characters, and you
Hmm.
get more on their thought processes. You can portray that in more detail, and I found that to be the case with the stories I've read so far. And so, and I don't have all the stories in hand yet, but they're forthcoming. We're kind of, we're running it as a Kickstarter campaign. And so, we're trying to sort of like gradually bring the work together and pull it into place before committing to having everything in place. But everybody on board is on board. So we're getting stories
Nice.
from the whole team. Yeah, for sure. But
Cool. Cool.
it's really it's great to read content by these folks. I think I can't wait the most to read Bob Burden's he's his Flaming Carrot piece. And of course Paul Chadwick. He's written something new, and I understand he's got other fiction on the way as well. So um,
Nice.
he and Don Simpson, who created Megaton Man,
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
both have aspirations in the fiction, in the prose fiction direction. And I think, I don't want to tell tales out of school, but I know they have work that's forthcoming in that direction. So I think
Love
this
that.
was a good fit for some folks because they're moving in the prose fiction direction anyway.
Love that. Love that. And
Yeah.
what was it like for you to move from author position to editor position and sort of be in that role of reaching out to these people, extending creative vision that way?
It's very different, as you know, I'm sure. It's wow, it's a whole different world. I love the creative process, and I love to be the guy coming up with crazy ideas, committing to the paper, and just thinking, what are people going to think of this when they read it? And
Mhm, mhm,
as an editor, it is different. There's a lot more technical work that you have to do. There's a lot more wrangling that you have to do, and a lot more detail work that you wouldn't always have to do as a writer, unless you're publishing your own work, of course. And you have to fill both roles. But it's also been very rewarding dealing with these all these guys and their characters and their and pulling it all together and knowing that I'm bringing something to life that people are excited about. I've gotten a lot of great response from people. I've got a lot of followers on the pre-launch of the campaign,
mhm,
and I think it's going to really resonate with a lot of people, and hopefully it'll resonate not just with people like us who might recall the original eras when some of these characters debuted and had their original heydays, but also younger readers who are like, "What's all this about these guys? Who's this Concrete? Who's this Badger?"
mhm, mhm.
That's one of the focuses of the campaign is to introduce newer readers to some of these characters that have been kind of in the background for a while and haven't really been in the forefront. Though some of them have been, but many of the ones featured in this book have not been out there for a while. So anyway, that's my long-winded way of saying it's great editing this project, and I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait to bring it to life.
Yeah, yeah, very cool, very cool. And I love that idea of bringing characters from sort of the way back. And as I mentioned, not it doesn't feel that way back, but then bringing
I
them to new
know.
light for a new generation. So yeah, yeah. Well, I think I have one more official question, and we can certainly add in any other information that you'd like. But of course, if folks out there want to know about this work, if they want to follow you, read some of your stuff, and support this project, where are some places they might go?
Well, they could go to my website, which is bobscribe.com. And from
Mhm.
there, they can link to the Kickstarter pre-launch page. They could also go to the directly to the pre-launch page on Kickstarter, and of course, once the project launches, I'm not sure when this podcast will broadcast, when this podcast will broadcast,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
or narrowcast or whatever you call it. But the actual campaign debuts October 8th.
Nice.
So maybe by the time this airs, folks will already have the opportunity to go right to the campaign page. But anyway, that link will still work for either way. So maybe if you could add that to your notes on your site, that might be helpful to people. They could just follow that and check it out. But yeah, if they want to follow the campaign right now in pre-launch status, then they'll be sure not to miss it. And I hope they will, because it's going to be great. And I have some really cool rewards. And one in particular I wanted to mention. Of course, we have the book in different formats, but the one I'm most excited about is we have a Secrets of Indie Comics All-Star course.
Nice.
Got
Nice.
like 10 of the folks involved in the project, and they're all going to answer questions from me and talk about their experience in producing comics and their careers and what it takes to succeed in the industry and what it was like back in the day and versus what it's like today. And so it's like if you opt to back the campaign at this particular reward level, you'll get to attend this course electronically. So
That's
I
very
can't
cool.
I can't wait to do that myself. I can't wait to do the interview. Can't wait to like sit down with them and like pick their brains. Like, Paul Chadwick, tell me more. How
Mhm,
did
mhm.
how did concrete gestate? What were you getting at? What did you mean when you said this in this particular issue?
Yeah.
I won't go that deep, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, very cool things. Glad to share about the work, and I will certainly have this out in time so that folks can go and check it out. You said October 8th.
Yes, sir. Yep. And
All
thanks
right.
again for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. I enjoy your show, and I think you have a great style, and you're doing a great service bringing worthy creations and creators to the public eye across the board, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that as well, and always glad to have you back.
Thanks, Jason. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Thanks.